All right. Welcome everybody to Purposeful Patriarchs. I'm your host, Eman. I just want to thank you for joining me on my YouTube channel where we're doing some learning and some studying on something called the Moynihan Report, which looks specifically into the plight of Black people. We're currently on part 4, and we're going to go through something called Reconstruction and Urbanization to see what happened to Black men and also to Black women as well, or the Negro man and the Negro woman, as it talks about in the report. Please share this video, drop a like, comment. Please critique it. If there's other information out there that I'm not privy to, please drop it in there, because this will make this channel very fun and informative, even though a lot of what we're reading through and studying and commenting on is very difficult to hold on to and understand. So without further ado, I'll continue working through BGS's content, because as I mentioned before, as much as I've done my own summary and provided my own nuance and discussion, it's important to listen to older Black men and older Black women to understand exactly what happened. And this is going to talk about the is this the part where it talks about, like, I think the last part of the previous episode spoke about the slave household often developed a fatherless matrifocal mother-centered pattern. And what I did was I actually showed everybody something on a quick Google search that I did. Here, I will just flip that over here. So just showing this this quick Google search that I did about institutions that are today funding the split of the Black family by funding Black women, and really and truthfully, even though the government still has a hand in the destruction of the Black family, we're still seeing issues today that are still affecting Black people, as specifically Black men. And one thing I just want to explain in this is that in other cultures, because they have a patriarchal pattern, which is what happens in the white community, it's what happens in the Irish community, the Chinese community, the Nigerian community, probably a bit less so in the Nigerian community now with feminism and stuff like that. But if a woman is earning money for the family, she brings it all into one pot and everybody shares, and everybody still understands dad is the leader of the home, leader of the family. But because of slavery and racism, this broke and destroyed the family, to the point where mothers were the stable center of the family, and that increased a level of disdain and disrespect. And we're gonna look through that, and this is what we see on these talk shows from the 90s. There's media that I'll be showing over the coming episodes from 1968, from 1975, from 1986, from 1990, all the way through till today's age, that the disrespect is still being funded, is still being perpetuated. A lot of it by Black women, not necessarily as much by Black men, but Black men don't have a voice to say anything about this stuff. And this is why you're starting to see such a massive blow up of the gender war and the gender divide between Black men and Black women. This is something that affects us over here in Britain, in the UK, as we say. But yeah, just going back to the this funding from the banking institutions. It's so interesting that if a Chinese woman or a Russian woman earns money for the family, she brings that in and lets the husband, well, not lets the husband, but she knows that the husband is the leader of the family. He's the one who makes the decisions. He's the one who has the say so. And because of the matrifocal pattern within the Black community, which is now being funded by the state, Black men do not have a leg to stand on, because the resources are being channeled through the woman, and she's taken those resources for herself and for her children. Whereas in other communities, what they'll do is they'll take those resources and they will use those resources to help the man get on his feet, to do what he needs to do for the family, whether it's to start a small business or do different things. You just see it all over the UK. You see it like with the Turkish, you see it with like Ghanaians, you see it with, you know, the Jews, you see it with the Irish. Like the family pot is then run by the man, and they will try and do something to create opportunities in their life. And this is one of the reasons why the Black community is still in the gutter, and it's getting to the point where it possibly will be extinct, because Black women are taking the resources that have been given to them and they're not creating families. Okay, they're not creating families. You don't see, like, and this is why Black men, these statistics, like the fact that they are the lowest married in America, and we have similar stats over here. You see the baby mother culture. This is all being funded by the state, by the institutions, by different things like HBCUs, like historical Black colleges and universities, who are giving scholarships and loans to fund the educational attainment and the employment attainment of Black women, which, because of the matrifocal pattern, this has now further caused the destruction of the breaking of the home within Black men. And what I'll do, I'm trying to probably next week I'll do about five to 10 episodes on what happened to Black men during this period, and why the narrative around Black men is so murky and is so tainted, because Black men have never really had a platform to actually talk through what they go through in the Western world. So without further ado, let's jump into the second part of the part 4, which second half. Can we go back? Yeah, second half of the Moynihan report, part 2. Did it not? Did it? I think I did. Hopefully, I'll go back and check whether I showed the funding of the institutions on my screen. So now we'll play the end of that section, and then we'll go into Reconstruction and Urbanization. So let's go.
It is and marginal. Of the greatest importance, the Negro male, particularly in the South, became an object of an intense hostility, an attitude, and unquestionably based in some measure on fear. This is game. It still is today. Look how many focal mothers, slave owners neither fostered Christian marriage among their slave couples nor hesitated to separate them on the auction block. The slave household often developed fatherless, matrifocal, mother-centered pattern. This is what Black feminists hate. This is what Black feminists absolutely hate. They hate this. And this is known 50 years. This is actually known more than 50 years ago. This is written a pattern W. Du Bois noticed. The Reconstruction. With the emancipation of slaves, the Negro American family began to form in the United States on a widespread scale. This is very true. It's been noted. But it did so in an atmosphere markedly different from which has produced white American family. The Negro was given liberty, but not equality. Life remained hazardous and marginal. Of the greatest importance, the Negro male, particularly in the South, became an object of an intense hostility, an attitude, and unquestionably based in some measure on fear. This is game. It still is today. Look how many African American males, Black American males, still get shot by police, get harassed by police, and still suffer with intense hostility. Philando Castile. We just saw this. When Jim Crow made it.
Okay, so let me just stop this here, because we did talk about this the other episode about liberty and equality. Why is my screen so small? I really hope that this is not how it's recording. I'll try and check again. Why is it so smooth? Yeah, the Negro was given liberty but not equality, so they were free, but they were not in equal status with white America. And obviously it goes into the fear of that. Okay, so let's continue.
Its appearance towards the end of the 19th century, it may be speculated that it was the Negro male who was the most humiliated thereby. This is giving up game. I can't mark up the whole page. The male was more likely to use public facilities, which rapidly became segregated once the process began. And just as important, segregation and the submissiveness it exacts is surely more destructive to the male than it is to the female personality. Bam, bam, bam. I almost feel like just dropping the mic and walking off. Let me highlight that. I gotta highlight this.
Yeah, that's an absolute banger there. Absolute banger there. And this
just as important, segregation and the submissiveness it exacts is surely more destructive to the male than to the female personality. Woo, let's keep going. Keeping the Negro.
Yeah, so this again is like, so when people say that slavery was the same for black men and black women, people need to get that correct, because it wasn't the same. It wasn't the same for black men and black women. There was intense hostility that was strongly pushed towards the male. And even though the black woman was under slavery, she didn't create this system. The Negro keeping a black man in his place was keeping the Negro in his place, and they see that the female was not a threat to anyone. Okay, so when we talk about like the dynamic between black men and white men, this is why she was the buffer, the intersection between the black man and the white man, and she wasn't a threat to anybody, so therefore she was able to in a sense, and this is why it worked in their favor, again, because she wasn't going to buck against the system. And this is where you will now get into different things like slave revolts, Harriet Tubman and people like that who were able to revolt, but there were several hundred other slave revolts that they don't really talk about, and this again perpetuates the not the myth of the strong black woman, but it does give it some grandiose, which has now become more of a myth to perpetuate the fact that black women kept the black community going when there were countless other black men who were getting themselves free and helping other slaves. So yeah, let's go.
In his place can be translated as keeping the Negro male in his place. The female was not a threat to anyone. I know the Swirlers aren't going to like this. Unquestionably, these events worked against the emergence of a strong father figure. The very essence of the male animal, from the bantam rooster to the four-star general, is to strut. Indeed, in the 19th century America, a particular type of exaggerated male boastfulness came from almost a national style. Not for the Negro male. The sassy nigger was lynched. Ooh.
Yeah, that's an absolute bar there. Actually, let me go back. So yeah, you can see here. So this is this section here under Reconstruction. So in this section here, so unquestionably this part. So these events worked against the emergence of a strong father figure. This is what I heard all my life growing up. You need to be a strong black man. You need to be there for your kids. You need to, the fact that there's fatherless homes. There's no strong leaders in the black community. Why are there no strong black leaders in the family when the system is against strong black fathers? And this is why I say you cannot defeat the system. Like, you are a minority in a system. It's like a rat trying to bring down a whole house. It cannot. If you think about the structure of a whole house and its foundations, one tiny rat or a group of rats yeah, or a group of animals, I shouldn't say rats, I don't know why, I was just thinking about London and its rats problem. A group of small animals cannot take down a structure of a house. They cannot, especially if it's built well. And this system was built well. Okay, so this is why there is a strong, there is no strong father figure. There is no black patriarchy, and I'm going to do a full episode on the black patriarchy. This is what the divestors, the swirlers, the black feminists, they absolutely hate this stuff, because it goes, all this stuff that black women keep talking about, that black men are the white men of white people. And all these sorts of things, trying to make it seem as if black men were patriarchs, when we were never, they were never allowed to be patriarchs in America, and subsequently over here in the UK, when black women were going for welfare, whenever they had a baby and stuff like that, it took the man out of the home. It didn't allow family formation or family building to occur in Britain as well. And this is where you have things like mothers against guns and all these sorts of things. It's never fathers against guns, because there was no fathers in the home. And these, over the past 60 years, black women have been choosing to not have fathers in their home. Okay, they've been choosing, because they're in that fatherless matriarchal pattern. They have chosen not to have fathers in their home, because and we'll get into this, the type of men that they choose were never fathers, and they do not go for the regular, big majority of regular black men who want to go to work every day, who have ambitions for themselves, who want to build a family, who want to be a husband, they will go for the wrong types of guys. And this is why they're reproducing with the worst type of men. And therefore those boys and girls become menaces to society. So, and then even in the 1800s, towards that 19th century, there was a boastfulness that came out of the American life, but that was never afforded to the Negro male, as it says here, and any boastfulness that was on any Negro male, that says that sassy N-word was lynched. And they put all of this in the report. Like, you can go read all of this stuff. This is a powerful document, because they have written this themselves. Okay. And this was studied for a long time. And as I said to you before, I've got, if you want to understand like how they, because there's this book, which is The Dark Ghetto, Dilemmas of Social Power, by Kenneth Clark, and that's a study on the ghetto in America. And he also referenced W.E. Du Bois's Philadelphia Negro. And I think Dark Ghetto, which is the Kenneth Clark book, which I've just shown on screen, that was done based on Harlem. And W.E. Du Bois' book, I think, is based on Philadelphia. And that's another book I need to purchase. But there's so much in this work here that we simply need to just, as BJS says, there's so much game. There is so much game here. So let's continue.
Bam. In this situation, the Negro family made but little progress toward the middle class. The pattern of class pattern of the present time. Margaret Mead has pointed out that while in every known human society, everywhere in the world, the young males learn that when he grows up, one of the things which he must do in order to be a full member of society is to provide food for some female and her young. This pattern is not immutable, however. It can be broken, though it has always eventually reasserted itself. Within the family, each new generation of young males learn the appropriate nurturing behavior and superimpose upon their biological given maleness this learn a parental role. When the family breaks down, as it does under slavery, under certain forms of indentured labor and serfdom, in periods of extreme social unrest, during wars, revolutions, famines, and epidemics, or in periods of abrupt transition from the type of economy to another, which is let's highlight that. Or in periods of abrupt transitions from one type of economy to another, This delicate line of transmission is broken. Can we say the Industrial Revolution? Can we say the modern digital revolution, folks? Come on, come on. Can I get a holler? Men may flounder badly in these periods, during which the primary unit may again become mother and child. They are biologically given, and the special conditions under which a man has held his social traditions in trust are violated and distorted. This is game, and it's still going on today.
Yeah. So yeah, it is still going on today. So yeah, it talks about the fact that like there is a destabilizing factor. Okay, so young males learn the appropriate nurturing behavior and superimpose their biologically given maleness, that this learned parental role. When the family breaks down, as it does under slavery, or under certain forms of indentured labor and serfdom in periods. So this is what it's breaking down. So it's not just slavery that causes a breakdown in the family, okay? It could be periods of social unrest during wars, okay? And this is where you can look at stuff like refugees, even things like revolutions, famines, epidemics, periods of abrupt transition from one type of economy to another. So the conditions for slavery during the industrial revolution. So this happened in America and obviously in other countries. So when they were going from the industrial revolution, so one of the reasons why slavery was so needed in America was because everything was all manuals and agrarian culture. So you had to till the field, pick cotton, and that's what essentially started slavery. But then they kept black people under slavery. But then once they transitioned to an industrial revolution, that's when black people left rural life and started to migrate to the north. And that's what we're going to talk about next, which is the urbanization. So during that, so when we think about the type of rural life and then going into urbanization, that's the transition of one type of economy to another. Okay, so again, this report is so prophetic, so profound. Okay, and this is what destabilized the family. Okay, and then during this period, men may founder badly. Okay, so during these transitions, men may founder badly, and then the primary unit becomes the mother and the child, and the man's social traditions in trust are violated and distorted. So this again is why black men have reacted very have behaved behaved or reacted badly. This is what has been distorted in the front of their very eyes, and people are telling them that they need to get on board with it, they need to live and work through it, but they're not talking about the roots of the problem. Okay, so now let's look at this part by E. Franklin Frazier.
E. Franklin Frazier makes clear that at the time of emancipation, Negro women were already accustomed to playing the, oh my God, oh my, this game. This is why black female feminists hate the Moynihan report and have tried to suppress it for 50 years.
So this is why we've not heard much about like the Moynihan report. I remember growing up, going to the barbershops in Clacton Junction and Stockwell, and they were always saying, like, when like the Caribbean barbers or the Nigerian barbers were talking about stuff like this, they would be saying that what's wrong with like black people is down to slavery, but they never quantified it. They never encapsulated. They could never articulate exactly why slavery destroyed the black family. Okay, but E. Franklin Frazier, whose book is called The Negro Family in the United States. I've got his book, the Negro Church in the United States, which is another book I'll be breaking down on this channel. So I've got so much work to do, but I want to do this work for people, and I want to eventually get people over to my Patreon. So please look out for that once all of these contents have dropped, because I really want to build this stuff for people to really quantify exactly what's going on in this structural Euro-American system. Okay, so yeah,
this is game.
So yeah, look at this. So E. Franklin Fraser, I need to clip this because E. Franklin Fraser makes clear that at the time of emancipation, Negro women were already accustomed to playing a dominant role in family and marriage relations, and this role persisted in the decades of rural life that followed. Boom.
E. Franklin Fraser makes it clear that at the time of emancipation, Negro women were already accustomed to playing the dominant role in the family and marriage and relations. Guess what? That means what? Matriarchy. And that this role persisted in the decades of rural life that followed. It never got fixed. It was a matriarchy in slavery, and it became a matriarchy as it evolved into a matriarchy in Jim Crow. It never got fixed. Urbanization. Country life and city life are profoundly different. We have come to find that out. The gradual shift of American society from rural to an urban basis over the past century and a half caused abundant strains, many of which are still much in evidence. When this shift occurs suddenly and drastically in 1 or 2 generations, the effect is immensely disruptive of traditional social patterns. It was this abrupt transition that produced the wild Irish slums of the 19th century Northeast. Drunkenness, does this sound familiar, folks? Drunkenness, crime, corruption, discrimination, family disorganizations, juvenile delinquency were the routine of that era. In our own time, the same sudden transition has produced the Negro slum, different from but hardly better than its predecessors. This does not have anything to do with racial identity. This is a natural human reaction. Different from but hardly better than its predecessors. And fundamentally, the result of the same process. You get that? You see this? This is game, boss. This is game, folks.
Yeah. So again, this is why I say this is not any any people group that transition to urbanization. Yeah. This can happen to them. Okay. It says it was an abrupt transition that produced. It's the same. It was this abrupt transition that produced the wild Irish slums. So again, and this is why this report, man, it just spits absolute flames, absolute bars, man.
This is how come this has to be studied. I mean, studied, not read, but studied. Negroes are now more urbanized than whites. And he goes through a stat of white urbanization by percentage and Negro urbanization by percentage. Look at this. Look at this. This is your problem. Negro families in the cities are more frequently Jesus Christ. Negro families in the cities are more frequently headed by a woman than those in the country. The difference between the white and the Negro proportions of family headed by a woman is greater in the city than in the country. It's because their tradition came from more cities in Western Europe. The urban city was built around the nuclear family unit, which was a tradition in Northern European white people. It was not a tradition in African culture, and especially in rural African culture. Percent of Negro families with female head by region and area in 1960. Look at that. Look at that. Look at the difference compared to a rural farm. More than double. More than double. The urbanization of the Negro is the biggest problem of the family. Well, let's continue. The promise of the city has so far been denied the majority of the Negro migrants, and most particularly the Negro family, because guess who was discriminated against? The Negro, the male. The Negro male suffered harsh discrimination on the job site. In 1939, E. Franklin Frazier described the plight movingly in that part of the Negro family titled The City of Destruction, the impact of hundreds of thousands of rural Southern Negroes upon northern metropolitan communities presents a bewildering spectacle. Striking contrast in levels of civilization and economic well-being among these newcomers to modern civilization seem to baffle any attempt to discover order and direction in their mode of life. In many cases, of course, the dissolution of simple family organization has begun before the family reaches the northern city. But if these families have managed to preserve their integrity until they reach the northern city, poverty, ignorance, and color force them to seek homes in deteriorated slum areas from which practically all institutional life has disappeared. Woo! Hence, at the same time that these simple rural families are losing their internal cohesion, listen to this, they are being freed from the controlling force of public opinion and communal institutions. In other words, they're losing their extended family and the social pressure from the extended family once they leave the rural area from where they came from. So basically, there are no controls and families have to break down. Family desertion among Negroes in cities appears then to be one of the inevitable consequences of the impact of urban life on the simple family organization and folk culture which the Negro has evolved in the rural South. This is exactly what I just said. The distribution of desertions in relation to the general economic and cultural organization of Negro communities have grown up in our American cities shows a striking manner the influence of selective factors in the process of adjustment to urban environment. Now, a lot of times it wasn't the black men deserting the family, which Du Bois actually showed. It was that man could not find a job and he was ejected from the family. So to get public assistance, the wife had to go in and actually say that the husband deserted her. In a lot of
Boom. This is another gem here. The fact that they W.B. Du Bois, and VGS calls him Du Bois. But I think maybe Americans call him Du Bois or Du Bois. But yeah, when it came down to the family structure, black men were ejected from the family because they weren't earning. Okay, this is the same pattern that you still see today. Black men want to be involved with their families, but black women eject them out of the family. Okay, so this whole thing about black men not wanting to be there, and again, through child support and through welfare, they are allowing, or they are sort of using the black woman to eject the black man out of the house. Okay, and again, this is happening with well-to-do black men, and it's also happening to your low-class, working-class black men as well.
States, a lot of states, the only way you can get assistance is if you could prove that the man deserted you and left you and your and his offspring to fend for themselves. Frazier concluded in his classic study, The Negro Family, with the prophecy that the travail of civilization is not yet ended. First, it appears that the family which evolved within the isolated world of the Negro folk will become increasingly disorganized. Modern means of communication will break down the isolation of the world of black folk. And as long as the bankrupt system of Southern agriculture exists, Negro families will continue to seek a living in the towns and cities of the country. They will crowd the slum areas of southern cities or make their way to northern cities where their family life will become disrupted and their poverty will force them to depend on charity. 1/3 of non-white children live in broken homes. Look at this.
Yeah, this is crazy. Like, so look what it says here. First, it appears that the family which evolved within the isolated world of the Negro folk will become increasingly disorganized. So that's why I keep saying to people, the black community is so atomized. This is why we need to practice marriage. We need to practice family building. There's no generational wealth. There's no educational prosperity, there's no financial prosperity, there's no harmony and unity when you're all atomized. Okay, so this is why there's a massive acceleration in the disorganization between the Black community, and I'm trying to use this document to heal the Black community to understand how far things have gotten. And this is why this document can try and bring some unity of thought in terms of where we are from back then to today. Even though I'm not a Black American, BGS is, and he's able to really bring and shed to light through this Moynihan report exactly what's going on. So now look at this second part here. Modern means of communication will break down the isolation of the world of the Black folk. So this is what you're seeing with something like hip hop. You're seeing this with the talk shows from the 90s and the 80s, all of those different things. Now with social media, all the isolation of the world of the Black folks has now been exposed. Okay, all our dirty laundry is completely exposed. This is what the Moynihan report predicted. And this is why I say it's almost prophetic. It's almost prophetic because they've actually studied this for 60, 70, 80 years. And we're now 90 years, or from 80 to 90 years from all the research that Kenneth Clark did, W.B. Du Bois did in Philadelphia Negro. Now with this Moynihan report, all of this stuff is showing us the plight of the Black people. Okay. And then, yeah, so let me continue. I think I nearly finished there.
Look at this. Look at this. And this is in 1960. This is 1960, and it was 1/3. What is it now? It's tripled. But I'm going to end it right here because we're running up on Royal.
Yeah, brilliant. I want to thank you, everybody, for joining me. Please share, please comment, please like. This is the sort of information that we need to be sharing. I know it's important to share clips and have discussions. And this is why, in my point of view, I don't really get into talking points, but I like to look at the structural document. But again, one of the things I want us to do is not get into all the quick takeaway topics, but actually try and do some solid research, build our knowledge, do the hard yards, do the reading, so that we can understand exactly what's going on in this system that's around us. So yeah, I encourage you, look at this report, share it with somebody, take clips, because this will make the Black community make so much more sense. I didn't know there was a document like this. As I said, I used to grow up in barbershops. I used to hear about baby mamas and all the dramas of Nigerian men, Caribbean men, and all that sort of stuff, and I never understood why that pattern existed. We can even talk about the music in terms of no scrubs, you got to pay my bills, all these sorts of different things that Black women say to Black men, but we were never allowed to be strong father figures because the system targeted Black men. And that, again, it's a European American system. You see this with things like, Stephen Lawrence in the UK. You see this with Anton Ferdinand and Rio Ferdinand in terms of the way that they were able to, back somebody who racially slurred another footballer, but yet they took John Terry to the Euros and stuff like that. So this stuff is not new in terms of a structure, in terms of institutional or systematic racism. And I will do an episode on the difference in terms of racial slurs versus the system of racism, because people like to muddy the water with whether Black people can be racist and what does racism mean, and prejudice and discrimination and all that sort of stuff, because it's so important that we define these terms. Okay, so thank you again for joining me, and I really appreciate you taking the time out to look with me through this, and I hope you have a blessed one. God bless.